Ivankov was so close to becoming a Yonko. He's just unlucky. But anyway, hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. You know what channel it is? The One Piece Club, where we lose our collective minds to dive into this fictional world of pirates. Let's go all crazy. Let's go all insane. Let's go wild by hitting that subscribe button before it breaks. We have a lot to talk about in this chapter, but there are two key things or two key points which I would like to discuss. First, Rox's ridiculous strength that turned Garling into a fraud, but he a fraud now. And the second is the interaction between Emu, Rox, Roger, and Garp, the 3Ds and Emu. Now, I think we need a new word for mind-blowing, right? A new word for mind-blowing to describe this. But before that, I want you to go back in time with me all the way back to the beginning of this incident. So there were two triggers, and the first one being Shaki getting kidnapped by the world government and discovering that the Davy clan had been hiding in God Valley all along. Both of these triggers were caused by this guy right here, Garling, he basically thought he was the luckiest man on the planet. But look at him now, slumped. He lost one of his sons, killed the mother of his children, lost Shaki, and got smashed by Rox. Now, this is both hilarious and sad at the same time, right? Ivankov and Garling, poor guys. It's not just him. In fact, all the characters at God Valley, right? All of them are driven by their own selfish desires, except these two, who are Dragon and Rox D. Xebec. Like I said before, I think it's safe to say that the Davy clan, or let's just say that Davy D. Xebec is the strongest and coolest pirate ever shown in One Piece. I'd just like you to just comment down below if you agree with me or not before we move on to the next section, okay? Yay or nay, put 1 or 2. 1 if you agree, 2 if you don't. Feel me? All right, let's continue. Now, I'd like to apologize to our Shanks and Roger fans, okay? I'm sorry, my Roger and Shanks fans, but Xebec really made it hard for anybody to surpass him. Now, we know Luffy eventually will, right? And that's for sure. But Rox has shown us in only a few chapters and in only a flashback that he's a unique and captivating character. The total opposite of Teach, right? This is why we see him trying to save his wife and child while being chased by the Marines while the whole world is against you. He put his family above his personal ambition. Now, this is amazing, right? We thought that was not going to happen because we thought that he was going to be the same copy as Blackbeard. And considering he wants to take down the entire world government, right? This comes out of nowhere, but it seems like Emu used Domi Reversi on the Davy family, including Rox's parents. What a move, which is really shocking because you do this is going to lower self-esteem while the whole fight is going. Yo, at this point, we still don't know the true nature of this ability. But I think it requires the existence of at least one of the Holy Knights to activate it and use it against his or her enemies. But if Emu is near the target, I think they can activate it directly. It's a broken ability, right? So it might have some kind of limitations to it if we think about it. But in any case, Emu doesn't hesitate to turn the majority of the Davy clan into his allies, forcefully or not. He literally turned them into demons and had them chase Rox around. Like, yo, what I didn't get about Rox's direction of his escape is that it's opposite to where they came from, right? I mean, the Rox pirates, they came from the opposite side. So it makes sense because he doesn't want to get blocked by the Navy and the huge number of pirates at the same time that he risks being cornered by Garling and the Holy Knights while he's trying to save his family. He thought this through. And this is why Aries convinced Rox to escape separately so he could fight freely. And I loved how these two interacted in this chapter. And I also loved how Oda gave us a strong and well-written female character this time. I think that many of us have been a bit disappointed recently when it comes to the roles of females in One Piece. This includes Nami, Robin, Shaki, and the rest of them. Seeing Aries doing this is really refreshing. Jenny was an amazing female character. We could see Kuma's humanity through her as well. This is Oda. This is my Oda. He gave us Kuma's flashback, and now he's giving us Aries, a little bit of, not a long-winded flashback like Kuma's, but something little where we can actually see how Blackbeard's mother and father were before they all disappeared. Remember, we all assumed he was born out of hate. There was a lot of theories floating around about that. As much as I want to spend an hour talking about Lucia, or Lucia being mentioned by Aries, I want to know the fates of the Davies that they talk about. A fate worse than death. A fate worse than death could be being turned into a demon. You know, you lose your freedom, you lose your dreams. But I have a feeling that it's much worse than this. Now, instead of commenting on Garling saying that they're lucky that rocks came to this island, like seriously. Dude, you are bleeding. You are bleeding. Can't you read the mood here, bro? This dude is a walking contradiction with the head and the mouth. I dead ass can't believe it. Putting Mr. Garling aside, right? I think is 100% confirmed that Advanced Conqueror's Haki is the best counter to the Holy Knights, right? And regeneration abilities. Now, it's good news because now Luffy and Zoro can fight against them without having to undergo any major physical training or another power scaling. They already have it. Scopper Gaban has already mentioned it from what we've seen so far. Like, I love power-ups, don't get me wrong, but too frequent power-ups are bad for the story. And for us readers, I feel like it's bad too. We might get tired of this, but Rox's Haki is just at a level we've never seen before. To split the island in half? Yo, Zoro and Mihawk need to both swing at the same time. Now, I'm not saying this to make Mihawk and Zoro fans angry or upset. I'm not doing that. But you should understand, bro. You should understand how powerful Rox is. He is so powerful that he beat the crap out of 2 Holy Knights and dozens of demons in only a few minutes. Not just any random demons either. They are his own his own parents who was able to fight them. Like, oh my God, this panel is badass. And I cannot wait for it to be animated because, man, look at this fight. This fight was so off-screen, but for a good purpose, for a great purpose. And before we go to that purpose, let's talk about Garp. Garp has a morality issue, and it seems Oda is trying to solve it right now. In my opinion, right, Oda still needs to clear the misunderstandings of Garp's character, but so far, up until now, we hadn't had anything. But I like how he reacted to the massacre in this chapter. This might be where everything changed for him. Let me be blunt for a second, right? Garp is fundamentally dumb. Now, let's be honest. Luffy inherited the stupidity and carelessness attitude from Garp, not Dragon. But he has good intentions, which is why the world government has been hiding information from him. Garp's innocence and straightforwardness created a wall that prevented him from seeing reality. He knew that the celestial dragons were oppressors. He knew they had slaves. But to him, at least that maintains peace. At least that maintains a status quo that is much better than wars and chaos. His reasoning was probably built on the assumption that the celestial dragons really went for a field trip. What I mean is, he really thought that the celestial dragons were dictators, but as long as they are kept entertained, nothing bad would happen. This is because the five elders are the ones running the world government. So for him, the phrase field trip had a literal meaning. You know, dictators doing what they do. And only Sengoku and Kong knew about the native hunting game, which is why we got this reaction from him. This is why. He couldn't believe the hundreds of bodies, of innocent bodies of people around him, and wished that this was only a nightmare. Unfortunately for Garp, this is reality. The system he served because he thought it could bring justice, to the world is the very definition of evil. I'm still wondering what Garp's words here meant, right? Nothing makes sense here. This is exactly what he said. Even justice. What does he mean by it? Do you guys have an insight that I don't know about? Comment down below because I would love to know. Does this mean he gave up on ideals and instead chose to follow orders? Or does he question his own belief in justice and how his career so far has been completely meaningless? I don't know, so let's wait for the original translation to drop before we make any kind of judgments. Honestly, even then, doubts remain because Garp's lines were a bit vague, right, in this chapter. We also see some cute panels between Shaki and Rayleigh, but it's too much for Rogers, his fans, and anybody else who were hoping that Roger will ship with Shaki. So I won't talk about this. Look, it's a good thing for Roger, okay? It's a good thing. Let him go through this because this is how he becomes the man we love. A man with a broken heart can get much stronger. Now, I don't think these treasures belong to the residents of God Valley though, but there's a small chance of that being the case. Roger, Whitebeard, and the rest of the pirates are evil, so they do anything. They do anything by any means to get what they want. But for us, we've grown attached to the ideals of these legends. We always put them on the good side of the story. Well, in general, they are. But seeing this does kind of change things a bit. It changes our view quite a bit. But just like I said, these treasures belong to the celestial dragons because, you can see the devil fruits. You can see the devil fruits in the mix. Chapter 1095, if y'all remember, y'all can go back. There were 6 boxes that were believed to have contained devil fruits. We already know 2 of them, but the rest are still a mystery. We know of Kaido's, which is the dragon, and we know of Kuma's. Gabon said that they found devil fruits in the mix of treasures, so I wonder if they put them here. And by the way, right, I want to point out one thing regarding the big battle between the pirates, right? In this, which is Marco kicking Kyo, why Oda? Why Oda? My man Kyo had been the main punching bag in this arc for Oda, and even a 19-year-old Marco kicked his ass. Oda is doing Kyo dirty. I'm not saying that we should talk or we should underestimate a 19-year-old kid or underestimate 19-year-old kids. Here's another one smashing the face of Linglin. Like, oh my god, look at her face. That's Kaido's best Raime Hake in his entire life. Linlin lost the pawpaw fruit to Kuma, and we've already seen the exact same scene in chapter 1095. But what we didn't know is how Kaido got his devil fruit. We always assumed that Big Mom gave it to him and that, she said it herself in Wano. But the reality of the whole thing, right? She was like, oh, you owe me one and everything. Things were different. She wanted those 2 devil fruits for her sons, basically mainly for Katakuri. But here is the problem. At this point, right, Katakuri was at least 10 years old, and in his Vivre card, we can see that he ate the Mochi Mochi no Mi at age 5. It was impossible for him to eat devil fruit. Is this just another mistake by Oda, or does it mean that Big Mom doesn't know about the restrictions of 1 devil fruits as of this moment? I know it's only a legend, but could Oda just be doing this because we're looking at the Davy clan and this is what they do? Big Mom normally wouldn't experiment on your son, right? Big Mom's problems don't end here. Big Mom has been an issue in the story. Why didn't Big Mom use observation haki here? This is a controversial question, but I think that this is the reason Katakuri devoted his life to mastering observation haki, because that could be her weakness. Katakuri eating the fish fruit is one thing, but Ivankov, man, every time I try to imagine a hybrid form of him with that devil fruit, I laugh. Like, think about it. I don't want this review to end without mentioning our GOAT, Monkey D. Dragon. So here he is trying to save Shanks and bleeding. At this point, I just gave up on expecting anybody to be more heroic than him. He literally raised the standard to a very high level. The bar has been elevated. Kuma did an amazing job. It was a very emotional scene, right? With all of the people he saved. All of them saying thank you to him. But he used his new devil fruit. Dragon was helpless. Here is another guy who raised the bar, or the standards of power and charisma, to an unseen level. It's only been 8 chapters since Rox was introduced to the story, and my guy, I believe that this was what we thought, maybe me, but this is what I thought Roger was going to be. He's already peaked for me. This is the second time he came face to face with Imu, and unlike the last time, he's going to fight. It's not very surprising to see this, because we already speculated for years that such a fight already took place. But nobody saw this coming. Nobody. Nobody thought that Kaido were so loyal to their captain. Welcome back. Like, both of you, welcome back to the GOAT Hall of Fame. But then again, why didn't he mention Rox with the people he said could damage him? I'm sorry for the recent slanders, right? Imu's haki shocked Roger and Garp, and I don't blame them. But it's good to see Roger excited as a result. Hopefully, this marks the turning point of his character. This is when he starts to act goatly like Rox. In any case, this is definitely the climax of the God Valley incident, and I can't wait to see how everything unfolds. But before the end, here is another important question for y'all. Why did Imu come to God Valley by possessing Saint Saturn? Gonko was there. Why wouldn't the absolute king of the world, risk revealing their identity to save the Holy Knights and the Celestial Dragons? Do they hold some special importance to Imu? Or is it because Imu has a grudge on Davy Jones and wants to kill Rox as a result? I appreciate y'all, but while y'all wait for the next video to drop, think about these questions and write your answers down, please, in the comments, because I would love to read this. The end game has already begun. So until next time, right? I appreciate you. I love y'all, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.